In the third module for church history, we're talking about the Dark Ages. It's called the Dark Ages because at this point in time, the Roman Empire has fallen, and it mostly fell because of the constant attacks by barbarian groups who were trying to take over land and attacking in all the different borders of the Roman Empire, which caused a lot of chaos and a lot of political upheaval. It also led to the spread of diseases, and so there was a lot of difficult things that the people were dealing with. So there's a few things I want to highlight. One is the rise of Islam. This would have started around 570. Well, Muhammad was born in 570 AD. So sometime 590 AD or so, Muhammad was a caravan driver in Mecca, and he liked to go to this one cave to contemplate and meditate life. And while he was there, he had an apparition of the angel Gabriel, or Jibril as they call him. And Jibril told him all sorts of information and passed on stories. And Muhammad, who was illiterate at the time, wrote it all down. I'm sorry, he didn't write it all down. He told it to someone else who wrote it down into what's known today as the Quran, which is the sacred writings of the Muslims. And the Muslims were a people who were monotheistic, which was kind of unique in the area. And they also believed that their job was to surrender to God. That's what a Muslim is one who surrenders. And so one of the ways they surrender to God was by evangelizing or spreading the word about God. And so as they start taking it upon themselves to tell everyone about Allah, as they called God, they also kind of started taking over geographically land. And they first took over the Holy Land, and then they moved east. And so, of course, this led to some problems for Christianity, one being that it really impaired their access to the Holy Land, but also eventually, Christians and Muslims are kind of vying for the same people, trying to evangelize the same group of people. So you'll read about Islam. One thing that I wanted to talk about that I don't think is highlighted very well in the reading are the 5 pillars of Islam, which they consider to be very sacred. And so one of those is the profession of faith. One of those is the ritual prayer, where they pray 5 times a day facing Mecca, and they pray on a prayer mat. The third one is almsgiving, where they give 2.5% of their income to the church. They also fast during Ramadan, so from sunrise to sunset they don't eat anything for a whole month. And at the end of Ramadan there is a pilgrimage, or the Hajj, where people make a pilgrimage to Mecca. And you're supposed to, if you can, do this at least once in your lifetime. Another thing about Islam that kind of originated in this time but is sort of misunderstood today is what they would call jihad, which today we translate as holy war. But at the time was kind of their call or obligation to spread the word and to help other people know Allah. But that kind of got translated into doing this by any means necessary, which became kind of violent means. So today when we hear jihad, we consider it kind of an extremist group of Muslims using violence and force to impose their religion on people. Another important thing that happened in this era was the Great Schism, and you'll read about this, but the word schism means split. And so hopefully by now you've noticed that there's kind of this rising conflict between the eastern part of the Roman Empire and the western part. And part of it, a big part of it, has to do with the role of the Pope. In the West, they saw the Pope as above the Patriarch of Constantinople, and in the East, they thought the Pope should be equal to the Patriarch. So they really questioned the Pope's authority. They also started to develop different practices, some of which were sacramental. And in the eastern part of the church, for example, when they were consecrating the Eucharist, they did this behind a screen so nobody could see what was happening. And so in their imagination, there was all sorts of, miraculous things that were happening behind the screen. So you'll see kind of the things that contributed to that break, but that's definitely an important thing. And as I mentioned, there were barbarian groups who were attacking from all sides. So the different barbarian groups also were interesting from a religious point of view because even though they were very impassioned about politics and taking over land, they weren't generally convicted to one religion, so they were pretty easy to convert. Another person you'll read about is Charlemagne and his impact. He was a great leader. One reason he was great is because Christianity was really important to him, and so he really helped spread Christianity. And he really empowered the Pope, so the Pope, this kind of led to a really high point in the papacy, especially with Pope Gregory the Great. And so those are kind of some highlights about what you'll read in this unit. And again, do the homework and fill in the notes, take the quiz, and good luck with all of that.